So we're all for the celebrations here, as are Tim Sherwood and Darren Lewis, who also join us in the studio. It's been just the most extraordinary weekend. I don't think we could have predicted half of what's gone on.
Is it just not the Premier League? It's just so unpredictable. When you likes of Liverpool, Nottingham Forest roll in and bottom of the league, get a result like that. It's just incredible what this league throws up. There's teams fighting for their lives, and everyone's got something to fight for, haven't they? In the Premier League, whether it's the top, whether it's top four, whether it's relegation, and that's what keeps us watching it. I mean, it's just fantastic.
Yeah, the relegation battle is going to be one of the most difficult things to predict because suddenly teams just turn their fortunes around. But what's also going to be really interesting is who finishes in the top four, because Newcastle are now up to fourth place in the table, and it was a comprehensive win, a comprehensive and definitive performance from them.
Yeah, I thought they played really well. Every single one of them. I thought Eddie Howe got his tactics spot on. Callum Wilson, we've said it before, if he can stay fit, I mean, he is the difference maker. Put performances together, they patterns of play, defended really well. Rode their luck a little bit in the first half. Son maybe should have done better with one or two of his chances, but I think a lot of people are now looking at this Newcastle side and thinking it was almost like, where can they finish? Maybe top 8, top 6 would be good. There's no reason why they can't go one step further. I think Eddie Howe's been really shrewd in the transfer market, bought good players with the right mentality as well. He's not just gone for superstar names. So I think all of a sudden, this performance against Spurs, who hadn't been beaten away from home, I think, since April, I think that was the real standout performance, and people went, OK, Newcastle are the real deal. Yeah, we'll talk about what it means for Tottenham a bit later on. But from a Newcastle point of view, they do have these performances in them. Is it about getting them consistently?
Absolutely. That's key. If you want to win anything, you need to be consistent. I think it's really disrespectful. Some comments have been made over the last few weeks about Eddie Howe and about spending. I think he actually improves some of the players that they've already had. Joe Linton, for instance, is the biggest example. Someone who's a fouled number 9 with previous managers, all of a sudden playing as number 8 central midfield and running the game. Ramirez is obviously one of his signings, but I think he's been astute in the market. He's not wasted any money. And he's improved the players they already had. So I think it's a little bit disrespectful to suggest that it's just about the money, because they've spent nothing. I mean, just hold your breath and wait what's going to come.
Yeah. I mean, they did in the last transfer window spend more than any other side in Europe, any of the big teams in Europe.
Yeah, but they needed to. Because they just come, they needed to, because they're struggling in relegation.
But
I think for Jurgen
Klopp
to come out and start criticising them, I think it's rich.
But is there not a difference between acknowledging that they spent a lot of money and criticising them for spending a lot of money? There's a difference, isn't there?
That's what he meant, really, wasn't he? He said, well, we're not spending the money and other teams are. So I just suggest he gets on with his own team, because he's got a lot of problems there at Liverpool.
And we will come to that very shortly. Look, for Newcastle, though, all is rosy in the garden. And one of the players who's got a new lease of life is Miguel Almiron, who it seemed was kind of a bit of a lost soul at Newcastle. Rejuvenated now.
Yeah, I wonder if you had a look at Jack Grealish's tweet about him.
Yes.
He said it, didn't he?
He's looking at his stats.
Well, he now has better stats than Grealish, which is quite interesting. And he is an example of the players that have been improved by Eddie Howe. He has a real confidence when he gets into the final third. He does take his chances exceptionally well. And he leads with his performances. He inspires other players around him with his performances. I look at Newcastle, the one thing that fascinates me about them in general, personally, if I was Newcastle, I would own it. When Amanda Staveley took over, she was very triumphant, and that's where all of the optimism around the club came from, because Amanda Staveley said, we will go out and compete for the biggest players, the best players. And I think it is true to say that there are lots of clubs that have had a lot of money but have not been able to build a defensive structure. I think what they've done at Newcastle has been really, really clever with their recruitment. They've brought in good players, not celebrated players, but good players. And they've really built a firm foundation, unlike Everton when they had the money, unlike Fulham,
Manchester United, potentially.
Exactly. When the new money's coming, they've all celebrated on offensive players and not really built the foundations of the house, whereas Newcastle have done the opposite. But it is also true to say that Trippier doesn't come if they haven't got the money, and Isak doesn't come if they haven't got the money. So I think it's almost half and half, But I definitely do think that Joe Linton is a really good example of a player that Eddie Howe has improved considerably, because lots of people felt he had to be sold, and Benitez didn't stay because he wanted a striker and they offered him Joe Linton, and he's like, this is a £40 million player who doesn't produce £40 million performances.
Which he didn't as a striker.
Which he didn't, absolutely, 100%. And this is the reason why I think Newcastle are in great shape. And yeah, Eddie Howe has done superbly well to mould together the sum of the parts.
It is a moulding of the sum of the parts, and as much as you can look at Almiron, you can look at maybe Callum Wilson's goals and the importance of keeping him fit. There is, as the guy's been saying, a collective there and a sense of knowing what's going to happen. There's a pattern to their play. Yeah,
I mean, as Daz was saying there, it's about the foundations, and as you said, Callum Wilson, if he can stay fit, he's 15 to 20 goals every single season. I think he's got the lot. Defensively solid. Even someone like Dan Burn, again, who they brought in, good player for Brighton. A lot of people looked at him and thought, okay, is he what they need at the time? He's playing left back now. He's fitting in perfectly. I think as a team, as you said there, they're so hard to play against. They work incredibly hard. They're playing for the manager, and I think more importantly, they all know their roles. Even someone like Bruno Guimaraes, who's the superstar signing of the team. He's doing the ugly side of the work. And you watched him against Spurs, he's flying around, he's putting his tackles in. When he's getting the ball, he's calm, he's composed, he's running the game for Newcastle. And I think a lot of credit goes down to Eddie Howe, because I think he's managed them really well. When you hear Eddie Howe speak, I think he speaks really well. He talks about his players. He's never too high if they win a game, he's never too low. He's always level-headed. And I think he knows exactly where this Newcastle team can go. And even
he should own it. Listen, the money will never go away. So the best thing to do in that situation is just own it and say, yes, we do have a lot of money. We do have an increased profile. There will be a spotlight on us. There is no point pretending and saying it's not about the vast sums of money we're buying for players, because the profile of the club has gone through the roof. I think he said that the weekend as well when someone asked him about the money. He said, unfortunately, we've got the money. The whole world knows we've got the money. But
not unfortunately.
But not unfortunately. I don't think he's quite happy with people trying to kind of detract away from the performance against Tottenham. It's almost like, well, you should play that way because you've got the money. And he's working his hardest to kind of say, well, that's not the case. We've got the money, but look at what we're doing with it. We're playing well, and we deserve all the applause we get.
Everybody knows that the secret, and you both know this. You've played in great teams, and and Harry Redknapp always used to say the secret is great players, and you don't attract great players to your club unless you've got money or you are incredibly good at recruitment, finding the gems, polishing them up, getting them to a position where they can perform on a big stage. And even then, the food chain dictates that someone else takes that player away from you. Yeah. Newcastle are not in that position at the moment because they have that finance.
But them players who look like, some of them, Almiron looks like a superstar, and the previous managers look like someone you'd want out of your club as quickly as possible if you could get your money back. That's why I think you have to give Eddie all the credit. I think the way they're playing now, the philosophy of how he's put them together, the energy and desire and the commitment of the group, not just individual players. It used to be Sam Maximan. Now he ain't played for ages. No one's talking about him anymore. He will come back, and if he wants to be part of a team group, then he's going to be valuable to him. But it's not just about the individual. You can't win anything with just one individual. You need a group to be buying.
Did you see that moment at the end of the game yesterday where they all got together and they were hugging each other, and that kind of struck me quite a lot because they are, Guimaraes is a superstar player. Lots of people think he could do even bigger than Newcastle. But at the end of the game, he was right in there. His baby was born last week. He wanted to be back there. That's a really good team spirit.
Do you know what, even the recruitment again, Nick Pope, we'll even mention him. I mean, the save he made yesterday from Harry Kane, he's made important saves at important times. So again, that comes down to Eddie Howe, because a few teams were in for him, but he felt like he was the right goalkeeper to take this club forward. And I think, again, he could be one of their major signings this season as well. And one side note on Bruno is that he could have been forgiven for being a bit distracted at the weekend, because his wife, I think it is his wife rather than his partner, gave birth to a baby. Gorgeous. And he put on Instagram, "This is for you guys." And I couldn't make head nor tail of this, because I thought he meant his wife and child. He didn't. He meant the Newcastle fans. And they went 2 days without sleep, could be at home, but I always wanted to be here with you. By which he meant the Newcastle supporters. Thanks for the support, and a kiss from Mateo, who's the baby, to you. He is a Brazilian Geordie, and then there's a very, very sweet picture of the new baby. But look, you can the link between Bruno and the fans is clearly a really strong one. I mean, his wife may be having words with him after the phrasing of that. Would you not rather have been with us? But look, it's important to him. And Natalie Guedra, the Brazilian journalist who speaks to a lot of the Brazilian players who are here and has quite good links with them, said he can't believe
how much the crowd have taken to him. And as he improves in his performances, they feed into his confidence, which grows, and then his performances grow.
Yeah, it's a slow burner as well for Bruno. You know, he didn't play for the first 2 months because it wasn't the right time to put him in. Eddie had him on the bench. He was kept drifting him into the game. And he's letting him have a look at the situation. John J. Shelby was playing in front of him. Another player who's picked up knocks as well. So that he had to get used to the English football. We know a lot of them do. He's never threw him in at the deep end to foul. He's put him in when it was right to put him in. They love a hero up there, and he certainly delivers. I mean, he's got the ability, he's got the passion. Benty talked about his work rate. You know, he's getting back in, he's running back. Yesterday, that game was a team knew what they were doing against a group of individuals who are playing for two superstars, which is Son and Kane, and hoping that they do something rather than as a team with a playing philosophy trying to open up the opposition. That was Newcastle, and Tottenham, unfortunately, at the moment are just reliant on Son and Kane.
You played and managed Tottenham, and you're a midfielder. You know all about the demands of what Grammarish has to do. Which team is benefiting most from their midfielders at the moment?
What, in Newcastle?
Out of Tottenham and Newcastle.
Oh, Newcastle.
And which team do you think will finish
Newcastle,
higher?
because they have a battle. They have a lovely balance. You know, they've got a nice mixture of their midfield. I believe that the manager asks them to do something what they like doing, they're capable of doing, rather than ask them to do the job what the manager wants them to do. I think that Bentancur, for instance, has got a lot more than what he's being asked to do. He's being very restricted. Højbjerg wasn't playing yesterday. Oliver Skipp comes in there. Bussinger is in there as well. I just think that they need to just let them do what they're good at. And I think Eddie Howe gives them that. So obviously, to answer your question, Newcastle get a lot more out of their midfield players than Tottenham are at the moment. But Tottenham are not doing that bad.
Who finishes higher?
Who finishes higher is about the consistency. At the moment, you would have to say you would want a season ticket at Newcastle. That's not answering your question.
But it's true.
I think
it's
Harry
true to
Kane
say
helps you finish higher up the league.
But it's true to say that even in third and fourth place in the table, with 11, 12 games gone, depending on you know, how many games teams have played, obviously, but 11 or 12 games gone, there is a level of inconsistency about both Newcastle and Tottenham. And if you look at Tottenham sitting in third place, but you look at the games that they've played, the opposition that they've faced so far, what have we kind of learnt about this side that there was so much expectation of at the start of the season?
The inconsistency, Kels, only comes last two games, you would have to say. You know, they've done brilliantly up to there. They've lost... When they played Chelsea...
Do you think the performances were consistent?
I think they're consistently average, the performances, but the results were consistently good. I think when you look at the teams who they should beat, I think they beat the teams they should beat. When you go up against Chelsea away and they get the draw at the death at 96th minute, they got lucky in that game. They go away to West Ham and they draw that game, not able to win. Then it's the big North London derby and they got a footballing lesson in that game. You know, they're the games they need to start picking up points in. Go to Old Trafford, get outplayed again, and then go back home to where their form has been excellent and get beaten by Newcastle. So you'd have to say at the moment, the next Premier League game is going to be a huge one for Tottenham because they need to bounce back. I believe Antonio Conte has got the passion, the drive and the commitment to the club that the club needed. But I do think they need to sort out his contract issue. You know, he's talking about it's the project. We need patience. We need time. We need money. You know, all of this is not good noise coming out of there because the reason it's not good noise because he's only got a contract till the end of the season. Now, if you want to go through with a project, you need to extend your contract. You need to extend your contract. And then perhaps Kane and Son will commit their futures to the club. And then the owner, if I'm the owner at the moment, I'm not letting him spend any more money until he commits himself to the club because you could end up buying players for another manager who comes in with a different ideas. So it's a crossroads period at the moment for Tottenham. I believe he is good. I believe he does win. Obviously, that's fact. Wherever he goes, he wins. Wherever he goes, does he entertain? Of course he doesn't. But there's nothing wrong with that if your club doesn't demand that. Obviously, they've given him a job. They know what he's all about. So the demands haven't been to entertain our fans. It's about, can you win? And at the moment, there's no conclusion because there's still a lot to play for.
Even if his sides haven't been tick-a-tacker type footballing side. They've been entertaining in terms of energy and in terms of getting the ball
That's him,
forward.
not his team.
Yeah, but
he entertains me watching him.
Yeah, but at Juventus there was a lot more energy in the sides than we're seeing from Tottenham. There is a suggestion that's being put around that Antonio Conte is trying to manage the team ahead of the World Cup. He's trying to kind of keep them. He's trying to not overload them before they go off to a World Cup and then come back to a second half of the season in which a lot of football is going to be played. That makes sense at the beginning of the season when the performances maybe aren't there, but the results are. Once the results start to go, is that quite a risky strategy, if that is his strategy?
Yeah, well, we saw it with Jose, didn't we, at Tottenham? You know, he was very pragmatic when he first came in. He was getting results, he ended up top of the league. People started getting excited about it. Then the results started to drop away, and then the fans turned on him. Listen, Conte will be no different. He'll be no different there. It's fine. As long as you win, everything's correct as a manager. When I was there was always a demand on how the team played. I remember our results were going well for a very good period. We had 3 wins on the spin, and I remember the sporting director asked me to have a chat with him and the chairman, Daniel Levy, and Daniel asked me, you know, why the team wasn't playing attractive football. Now, I couldn't believe he was actually asking me. And now, one thing I will not believe is that he's asking Antonio Conte that, because I think he knows the answer. It'd be 2 words and last one would be off. So, no, at the moment, I would say Antonio Conte has got the reign to do whatever he wants. He's earned that right there. The fans are excited by him, but they will not get excited because if they start losing games, they're back-to-back losses there. They lose the next one, then they all go very sour very, very quickly, and the manager will end up leaving the football club. I just think this contract thing is huge. I think he needs to commit his future to the club, and then the chairman and the recruitment can give him the tools to work with in the next transfer window. And
that's why the contract situation, as you said, as regards the transfer window is so important, because it's not a club where there is a philosophy about buying players, if you like. There isn't a kind of overarching. It's on the manager. He is the one who's in charge. He's the one who sets the team up, the one who chooses the players that come in. And that's why it makes it so important that they know what's going to be coming after the end of the season. Because as Tim said, otherwise it's not, for example, a Southampton or a Brentford where the players that come in are picked to a pattern. At Tottenham, it's what the manager wants.
Absolutely. I mean, it's quite instructive listening to Tim and Darren talking, because they've been in positions where you have to think, well, what's the manager going to do? Do I want to play for the next one if he were to go? You know, what direction are they going to go in? So they understand the uncertainty that exists in a dressing room far more than I would. It's quite fascinating that as far as Conte is concerned, there's a view that he's leveraging the interest from Juventus against Spurs to say, look, this is what I want, this is what I want. So against that, Spurs know that if they let a guy go who is a winner, proven winner, then can they ever claim to be ambitious ever again? So they've got to give him what he wants.
But they let Jose go, didn't they?
Well, they did, but I think Jose was the other side of... You know, it's not particularly polite to say it, but I think he was on a downwards path, whereas I think as far as Antonio Conte is concerned, he's still hungry, still hot. He's won the league in each of the 3 clubs he's been at. He's overcome huge deficits to do that. With Juventus, it was in the first season, Chelsea first season, Inter Milan, it was the second season. And he's won FA Cups as well and other domestic cups. I think as far as Conte is concerned, he's won more on his own than Spurs have won in the last 30 years of the Premier League. I just think as far as he's concerned, you're right, he's got to commit. If he commits, other players commit. Kane commits. The likes of Bastoni will leave Inter Milan. I know he likes Bastoni, a huge, commanding, imposing central defender. Adds the leadership he so desperately needs at the heart of that central defence. He also needs a creative midfielder as well. These players come if they know you're going to stay. But obviously, as far as Spurs are concerned, they've got to persuade him to stay, and to do that, they've got to give him the finance. I think they will. I think he'll stay.